The county activates its winter weather plan. With a cold, wet night ahead, hundreds of people now have a place to stay dry.
Is it enough to stop climate change? No. The world has to do much more, much quicker, and so does California.
Parting words from Governor Jerry Brown, his thoughts on climate change and his work as governor as he prepares to leave office. Go, get, go. Ending 2018 with a parade and some football. San Diego welcomes fans for the annual Holiday Bowl. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebone Monet. The partial government shutdown will continue into the new year. Democrats say they will act quickly to end it when they take majority later this week. The new congressional term begins Thursday. That's when Democratic leaders plan to introduce a funding bill on Friday. It would reopen the government and allow more time to negotiate with President Trump over his border wall request. Senator Lindsey Graham met with the president over the weekend and says a deal might be within reach.
The president is firm in his commitment to make sure we get money for border security. And there'll never be a 60-vote deal in the Senate that doesn't include money for border security / wall. And I don't see Democrats giving us more money unless they get something. The TPS recipients, about 400,000 people came to America for the last 20 or 30 years, fleeing war zones, natural disasters, and their legal status is about to run out. There's a lot of sympathy for this population in the Congress, and I think the president is very open-minded about this dilemma.
California played a big role in electing Democrats to the new House. 7 seats flipped from Republican control. 5 of those seats are in Southern California, including the 49th District, which covers parts of North County. On the final day of 2018, one prominent Democrat is looking ahead to 2020.
Because no matter what our differences, most of us want the same thing: to be able to work hard, play by the same set of rules, and take care of the people we love. That's the America I'm fighting for. And that's why today I'm launching an exploratory committee for president. But the outcome of this election will depend on you.
Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren has been a vocal critic of President Trump. She was first elected in 2012 and is known for her work as a consumer watchdog. Launching a presidential committee will help her decide if she has enough support for a national campaign. It's the final week in office for California Governor Jerry Brown. He recently sat down with KQED's Scott Schaefer to talk about his political legacy.
You came into office and it was a mess, right? So there were questions about whether California was even governable. There was a $26 billion deficit, a big recession. And there's an expression, never let a good crisis go to waste. Yeah. And I'm wondering, do you feel like you used that crisis to do things that you might not have otherwise been able to do?
Well, we got things. So without that fiscal crisis, we probably wouldn't have had the rainy day fund. We wouldn't have the cuts that we made. And we might not have had the tax increase that Proposition 30 was. So those were all things that responded to a clear problem that presented real threats. But that's what government is. It's challenge and response. You get a challenge and you got to respond. And there was no challenge, we'd all be asleep. There was nothing to do. But that was a particularly difficult period. Millions of people lost their homes, millions of people lost their jobs. That was a very unusual period, and it did provide the stimulus for a lot of things we did later.
To what extent were there things that you did because you felt you had to, but you didn't necessarily want to? And one thing that I'm thinking of is getting rid of the redevelopment agencies. And maybe you wanted to do that, I don't know. But were there things that you would have liked not to do in terms of big cuts like that?
Redevelopment is siphoned money from the schools, and the schools needed money. Many people think they still need money. Teachers not overly paid in any sense. The redevelopment, there were plenty of abuses. A lot of people wanted to see it go, and it did free up almost $2 billion a year for schools. And if people want to bring it back, they're going to take billions from the schools, and I would assume those people who care about California public schools will fight that very hard.
Yeah. You have made, among other things, criminal justice reform really one of the hallmarks of your 8 years in office. And part of that was due to the federal courts saying you've got to reduce the prison population. But you went well beyond, I think, what needed to be done to do that, to accomplish that. And I'm wondering, why was that such a signature important issue?
That interview aired on the latest episode of KQED Newsroom. You can find more stories at kqed.org. Shelters in downtown San Diego will increase their capacity tonight due to the cold weather. The San Diego Housing Commission works with the city, Father Joe's Villages, and Connections Housing to open up an added 300 beds. Meals will also be provided. The county activates the winter weather program when overnight temperatures drop below 50, with a strong chance of rain.
Issue for you.
I'm Amna Navaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, new video shines light on how migrant children are treated in U.S. custody. Coming up at 7 right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
The city of San Diego is working to install new protected bike lanes in parts of downtown. But KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says right now some of these lanes don't guarantee safety for cyclists.
This is a garbage truck parked squarely in the newly installed cycle tracks on J Street downtown. To get around this truck, cyclists would have to go out of the bike lane and into the street. Workers tell us this used to be a yellow zone for loading and unloading, but now it's a red curb meant to shield cyclists from cars. A red curb means no stopping anytime, but some drivers are not following the rules here. We even saw a San Diego police officer park his patrol car in the protected bike lanes to make a stop inside a convenience store. Despite some people parking in the red zones, cyclists we talked to say they're happy to have the new bike lanes.
Some of the streets are still bicycle shared with cars, but many times the cars don't share. So here's a totally separate lane, which is much, much better. It's a good thing. I mean, you lose a little bit of parking, but there's other parking in the city, and it's been a problem to begin with. More bicyclists, less parking needed.
The new lanes have bike-specific traffic signals, which seem to be confusing for some drivers. It's unclear if anyone has been given a ticket for parking in the new lanes. The city says it plans to install barriers to separate traffic from the bike lanes soon. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
We're looking at a freeze watch in areas traveling on I